They're the tiny engineers of our world, right? The little six-legged creatures that basically keep everything running. But here's the thing. They are vanishing, and they're vanishing at a pace that is, frankly, terrifying. So let's get into this story of insect annihilation and figure out what it means for every single one of us. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The legendary biologist E.O. Wilson laid it out in the starkest terms possible. He's not being dramatic here. He's telling us that the very foundation of life on land, our life, it all depends on these little guys. The stakes couldn't be higher. So, okay, how bad is it really? Let's take a look at the actual numbers. And I've got to warn you, they are shocking. This is all happening quietly, all around us, in what scientists are now calling a silent annihilation. The scale of this is it's hard to wrap your head around. Globally, studies are showing that more than 40% of all insect species are threatened with extinction. That's nearly half of all the insect diversity on the entire planet, just facing the possibility of being gone forever. And if you want to get even more specific, check this out. This number, 76%, comes from a huge 27-year-long study in German nature reserves. They found a 76% drop in the total biomass. We're talking the sheer weight of flying insects. Just imagine for a second if 3/4 of the food available for birds, bats, and so many other animals just, poof, disappeared. Now, to really put this into perspective, our planet has gone through 5 great mass extinctions in its history, caused by giant asteroids, massive volcanic eruptions, that kind of stuff. Well, scientists are now calling our time the Holocene extinction, the 6th mass extinction. And here's the critical difference. This one isn't being driven by a rock from space. It's being driven by us. Okay, so the numbers are absolutely staggering. But what does this really mean for our day-to-day lives? What would a world without all these tiny creatures actually look and feel like? This next part really paints a clear picture of just how dependent we are. So have a look at this. You can see just how vulnerable our food system is. Over 3/4, 75% of the world's food crops rely at least partly on pollination by insects and other animals. And we're not just talking about fancy luxury foods. We are talking about a fundamental pillar of how we feed ourselves. And here's the real kicker. At the exact same time insect populations are plummeting, our reliance on them has completely exploded. In just the last 50 years, the amount of our agriculture that needs animal pollinators has shot up by 300%. So we're demanding more and more from a system that is breaking down. So what's the actual price tag on this, free service that nature provides? Well, the annual value of the food we grow that directly relies on pollinators is estimated to be worth somewhere between 235 and 577 billion US dollars. That is just a colossal, mind-boggling contribution to the global economy. And this, right here, is where it hits home. Think about your morning cup of coffee, the apples in your kid's lunch, or chocolate. I mean, who doesn't love chocolate? Well, it comes from the cacao tree, and that tree is pollinated by these teeny tiny little flies called midges. No midges, no chocolate. It's really that simple, and it's that serious. All right, so if it's not a meteor and it's not a volcano, what in the world is driving this collapse? As we get into this next section, it becomes crystal clear that all the clues, all the fingerprints, they point directly back to us. Geologists have a name for the era we live in, the Anthropocene, the age of humans. It's a pretty formal way of saying that for the first time in the history of the Earth, one single species, us, is the main force shaping the entire planet's climate and environment.
So what exactly are we doing?
Well, this table breaks it down pretty clearly. The single biggest driver, accounting for almost half the problem, is habitat change and intensive agriculture. Right after that, you've got pollution, especially pesticides. It's not one single thing. It's more like a death by 1,000 cuts. And this kind of shows the choice we're facing. On one side, you have the model of intensive agriculture, these giant fields of just one crop, totally dependent on heavy pesticide use. But there's another path, and it's called agroecology. It's a whole different system that tries to work with nature, by having diverse crops and creating homes for pollinators. And digging into that pollution piece, there's one class of pesticides that really stands out, neonicotinoids. This quote from the research is chilling. It calls them a new DDT, that infamous pesticide that got banned, but with a terrifying twist. They are 1,000 times more toxic to bees. And what's so important to understand is that these threats don't happen in a vacuum. It's a compounding problem. So a bee might already be weak from a nasty parasite called the varroa mite. Then on top of that, it gets exposed to pesticides. That 1-2 punch is way deadlier than either threat on its own. It just wrecks their gut health and collapses their whole immune system.
Okay, I know this is a grim picture. It's heavy stuff. But the story does not have to end here. The same science that's sounding the alarm is also showing us the way out. So let's shift gears and look at a blueprint for survival. Researchers have basically laid out a 6-part strategy, a real game plan. And it starts with a fundamental shift in our thinking, recognizing that insects have value just for existing. From there, it moves through research, policy, and into practice, all the way to actually checking our work to see if it's helping. It's a whole plan for turning this ship around. And this is where it really comes down to you and me. What can we actually do? Well, the answers are pretty tangible. Planting native flowers in your garden, or even just in a pot on your balcony, provides crucial food. Cutting out pesticides at home helps stop the pollution. Supporting local organic farmers, that pushes the whole system toward agroecology. Even in the middle of a city, we can create these little oases that are vital for our 6-legged friends. The really good news is we are not alone in this fight. This is so far from a fringe issue. You've got major global players like the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. Yeah, it's a mouthful, we'll just call it IPES, and it's backed by the United Nations. They are leading the charge on research and policy to fix this crisis. This quote from M.S. Swaminathan, one of the leaders of India's Green Revolution, just nails it. Conservation isn't some luxury, right? It's not a nice to have. It is the foundation that everything else, our economy, our health, our food security, is literally built on. So, we're left with this question. That buzzing sound you hear in a garden, it's not just background noise. It is a vital sign. It's the very pulse of a healthy planet. And the question for all of us is, are we listening? And are we ready to do something before that pulse goes silent?